I am here today with Rob Joslin, soybean farmer and farmer of other crops in western Ohio. Rob, tell us a little bit about your operation and the things you do and what you do as far as crops you raise.
Basically, as you said, I'm a soybean farmer and a corn farmer. I've been 100% no-till for over 20 years. Started first year I came home from college in 1975, so have a lot of experience with conservation tillage. At this point in time, we simply rotate corn and soybeans back and forth.
You know, we talk about no-till, and I know a lot of our viewers won't have a clue about what we're talking about, and as far as what that means for our environment and that sort of thing. So would you explain that a little bit?
Well, that's a good question. I think the word no-till explains it pretty well. We do not do any primary or secondary tillage. Drive in the field, really for the first time with a corn planter with about 1-inch coulter on the front. And we do a 1-inch tillage slot with a seed placed behind it.
And so we talk about the benefits that we're talking about fuel savings, we're talking about reducing our carbon footprint, and a number of things like that. So good for the environment?
Absolutely. You said it. Fuel, carbon, it sequesters the carbon in the soil. It's just overall erosion and runoff control. It's a very beneficial for the environment.
And you know, one of the interesting things with this, and I don't know very much about Rob's field, but I can tell you this. Do you know that no-till farming with the biotechnology today is the equivalent of taking 441,000 cars off the road every year as far as improving our environment? But we have more reasons to be here than talk about Rob's farming methods. Tell us your second job that you've had and that's allowed you to travel the country and that sort of thing.
I really got to tell you, I think farming for the last 3 years has been my secondary job. My primary job was last year I was president of American Soybean Association, and that was a 3-year commitment for leadership to looking out for the best interests of U.S. soybean farmers. There's a president-elect position, we call it first vice. Then I served a year as a president, and this year I'm about halfway through my term as chairman of American Soybean Association.
Of course, I want to congratulate you for that. And so tell me, how many soybean farmers are we talking about, and how many states and that sort of thing?
It's about 21,000 voluntary membership support for the ASA in 31 states. And I also should have mentioned when I said that's my primary job, I really did not keep track of days, but I wager say it's about 200 days a year on the road for looking out for the interests of the U.S. soybean industry.
And shoot, we all know that soybean farmers can grow soybeans. What other interests would you be talking about that you need to represent their interests?
Oh, it's such a myriad of interests, it's hard to even know where to begin. We work on legislative issues such as the one that's coming about right now, it's a farm bill. But we also look on free trade agreements, we look at regulatory oversight, and basically anything that affects U.S. soybean farmers' profitability.
You know, agriculture is America's #1 industry. Let's talk about free trade and the issues associated with that, because I know there's some free trade issues coming up immediately. And Rob, would you describe that a little bit and tell us what's happening?
Be glad to. For 3 years, almost 3.5 years, there's been 3 free trade agreements: Korea, Panama, and Colombia, all sitting on the shelf. And administration, it was passed by or approved originally by the Bush administration. This administration is just now at this time moving forward through Congress for legislative approval.
And that legislative approval just isn't that simple of when we go in there and we're going to give it a rubber stamp, is it? Tell us some of the issues that are involved with that.
Everybody's aware, I'm just trying to frame, this is such a complicated issue, how I can do the Cliff Notes version of it. Everybody's aware of the fact that we used to have what's called fast-track approval. And that means that once it's put in Congress, it has to be acted on in 90 days without any amendments. Now, I think everybody's aware of how Congress works, and you can just imagine the challenge to bring legislation forth that the congressman and senator does not have any authority to amend. So a lot of this is the legwork has to be done ahead of time, and right now what's called a mock write-up is going through the Senate Finance Committee, and they're kind of working out the details before they actually submit the implementing legislation. To work that through, it has to go through the Senate Finance Committee, it has to go through the Ways and Means Committee of the House, and also both House and Senate Ag Committees, before it can actually be brought to the floor for an up and down, no amendment vote.
And you know, this isn't just about supporting soybean farmers. There's far more involved in it, isn't there?
Absolutely. There's a lot of business interests, and unions have a piece to say about this. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce has come out in favor of this. Fact is, the odd thing, the motion picture industries come in favor, but a lot of unions are opposing this. And with this, there's also another piece of legislation called Trade Adjustment Assistance. And that's where they recognize that there may be some workers in the United States that will be displaced, and there will be programs in place to help retrain those workers. And with the budget concerns of Congress right now, that has to be offset with payments, and those offsets are done. But now they're arguing about how to move the TAAs forward at the same time they move the FTAs forward. So I know that's a lot of acronyms, but that's how Congress is working right now.
And you know, the thing is, we've talked a little bit about kind of the negative side of this, but there's a huge positive benefit, as I understand from it. So let's talk about the positive things for the average Joe Schmuckatella American.
I don't think there's that many negative sides. Free trade, or trade, has to occur for world commerce. And I do not believe that we will solve the challenges we have in the job market of the United States if we don't engage trade overseas. 96% of the world's population exists outside the shores of the United States. We have 4% in our country, and we cannot prosper if we don't trade with 96% of the world. This is a very good, beneficial agreement for agriculture. The three agreements together are about $3 billion annually of additional U.S. agricultural trade, and also levels the playing field for imports from the United States into the Korea for manufactured goods. So it's very good agreements. Really, all three of them are very good agreements for the U.S. economy.
So it's positive for agriculture, but it's also positive for jobs and the economy and pretty much all Americans.
Absolutely, absolutely. It levels the playing field. It removes tariffs into the United States, but it also removes tariffs from the United States into, let's just say, Korea, Colombia, and Panama. We own a lot of trade in Panama. That's a little bit different because we own so much, but Panama has a free trade agreement with Canada that's going to go effect in less than a month. If we do not trade with Canada, or Panama, they're going to trade likely with Canada. In fact, about a year ago, I met with the Panamanian Chamber of Commerce. I asked them, I said, just how important is this free trade agreement to business interests in your country? And they said very simply, we want to trade with the United States, but pending passage of the free trade agreements, we are going to seek opportunities to trade with other regions of the world. I think that's what U.S. Consumer needs to understand, that we're missing opportunities if we don't pass these free trade agreements, and frankly, once they're missed, we will never regain that missed opportunity back.
You've heard a lot about the positive aspects of that. Now let's switch gears a little bit. And that is, soybeans isn't just about making soy oil and something to put on your Chinese dinner and that sort of thing, is it? I mean, there's a whole bunch of other products and things like that that's involved. Let's talk about the miracles of today's soybeans.
It's a miracle crop. Traditionally, soybeans been processed to soybean meal, which obviously is pretty much fed to livestock, and also into soy oil, and we eat a lot of soy oil and mayonnaise and salad dressings. Now, one thing that's happened over the last 2 or 3 years is we've lost, I believe it's 3 billion pounds of annual loss in the human food consumption of soy oil because of the trans fat labeling law. That partially hydrogenated soybean oil does not meet the zero trans fat. One thing that's very exciting is some of the technology companies, and we haven't talked about this. One of the things ASA works very hard on is acceptance of new technologies. I don't care if it's biotech or if it's GPS positioning on the farms. We work to make sure that the new technologies have a place in American agriculture. So get back to the oil market. Two companies are coming up with new soybeans that have a different oil alignment within the beans, and they will not need to be hydrogenated to meet the zero trans fat. And hopefully with that we can regain some or all of that 3 billion pounds of loss of oil into the human market.
And then let's expand this just a little. What about things like soy oil in diesel fuel or in plastics or that sort of thing? Is there a market there?
Well, obviously, biodiesel is a high priority of the American Soybean Association. You talked about the positive aspects of no-till, where there's a lot of, in conservation, there's a lot of conservation environmental aspects for biodiesel. I run either a B10 on my off-road fuel and a B20 on my own road fuel on the farm. And just Monday I visited with a member or a school board member, and he just loves biodiesel in his buses in the staging area because the fumes are so much cut. As the large reduction of nitrous oxide. Large market, we need to work to maintain the viability of the biodiesel market. Plastics, of course, there's carpet, there's countertop, there's all kinds of things. There's so many things. If it's being manufactured, it can be manufactured with cloth. They got cloth and clothing coming out with made out soybeans. There's just unlimited potential of the miracle bean.
So in essence, this could be the recipe for us to end our dependence on foreign oil.
We have to use every tool we have. It's a domestically produced, environmentally friendly fuel that we need to make sure that we continue developing and marketing that in our country to decrease the dependence on foreign oil.
You know, it's exciting to hear what the American Soybean Association is doing. It's also exciting to hear Rob Joslin's role in his leadership with that organization and traveling for trade agreements and various things around the world. In the future, you're going to hear more about soybeans and reducing our dependence on foreign oil. We're here with Rob Joslin talking about the American Soybean Association and their activities and the things that, the potential that soybeans have. How can local soybean growers get involved to help with this organization?
The first way to get involved is to become a member. I think a lot of producers do not realize that a lot of the work of the American Soybean Association, the legislation and the regulatory work, is prohibited from their checkoff. That's why there's a separate organization. There's one that administers their checkoff, and then there's a volunteer membership association, the American Soybean Association, looking out for their best interest in trade issues and influencing government. To join, just simply go to American Soybean Association's website. There's a link for membership, and most home states also have a simple link, and I really encourage, it's $1 a week or so to join and support the American Soybean Association, and I want to tell you what, it does pay large dividends. Thank you.
As Rob said, you soybean growers, join the American Soybean Association today.